Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Austria and Vienna, a Gateway to Europe webinar this morning. I'm delighted to be joined by our event partner, the Austrian Business Agency, and we've got quite a few speakers on the line this morning, hopefully to give you a bit of an overview of setting up in Austria and also exporting to Austria. So I'm Amy Swindles and I'm the Head of International Professional Services at Greater Manchester Chamber, and thank you for joining us this morning. Just before we go straight into the event, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of Greater Manchester Chamber for those of you on the call who don't know who we are. So if we could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So we're the largest accredited Chamber of Commerce in the UK with over 4,600 members, and we offer a wide range of business support, as well as one of the key things we do is support members in their international trade journey. So whether that be you're looking to export, import, or you're looking to set up, hopefully using one of our partners that we've got on the call today. Next slide, please. And this is just an overview of our services. Can we just skip back, please? Yeah, thank you. So we can help companies all the way from getting started with their international trade journey through to the actual documentation, the paperwork. We're now helping a number of companies get with their customs clearance documents, particularly surrounding the EU and the new requirements. Thank you. Next slide. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview before I hand over to our next speaker of the current trade flows. Throughout the presentation, if you've got any questions, if you can just post them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom, and we will have some time at the end to take the questions. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, we imported far more than we exported in 2020 to Austria, as we see with most countries that we import from, and actually that was still a 13% drop on the 29 figures, which obviously with COVID and regulations has obviously affected our imports and exports with Austria. Slide, please. That was for goods, so this is looking at services. So again, we saw contraction in 2020 on the services. So as you can see, there was a steady increase in our export of services to Austria up until 2019, and then that dipped again in 2020, and the same with our imports of services from Austria. Next slide, please. And this is just an overview. Unfortunately, service stats quite hard to come by. So this is back in 2018, our main service exports and imports. So we can see importing travel services, business services, transportation, and our key exports services, business services, financial, telecommunications. Next slide, please. Thank you. And this is a slide just showing our exports of goods and our imports. So again, excluding 2020, as we know, it was a difficult year for international trade. And you can see the total figures there. We will share these slides if you're interested in looking into the stats. These are taken from the UK Trade Info HMRC data. Next slide, please. A little bit of a small graph, but you can see in terms of Austria, we are ranked the 12th partner in terms of supplying goods, and the 5th non-EU country behind Switzerland, China, US, and Vietnam. Next slide, please. And this is just looking at our regional performance. So breaking down, we can see the Northwest was actually negative. So we dropped in terms of exports to Austria between 2016 and 2020. And then we've got regions like the Northeast, Northern Ireland, which actually increased their exports. So we've still got a bit of work to do for Northwest and Greater Manchester in terms of exporting to the region. Next slide, please. And this is a tool we subscribe to, the International Trade Map, which just looks at our strengths in the UK and also gaps in the market in Austria, and we can see the untapped potential for us to export to Austria around 1.4 billion US dollars, and they are the top sectors there where we've got most of our unrealised export potential. So in machinery, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, medical devices, and the automotive. And that's it from me. So for now, I'm going to hand over. I think we've actually struggling to get the ambassador on the line. So I'm going to hand over to Christian from Advantage Austria. And if we manage to get the ambassador back on the line, we will obviously hear from him.
I am on the line. I am on the line.
You're back here. Thank you.
I am on the line. Oops, can you hear me?
Yes, I think we can hear you. So I'll hand over to His Excellency Michael Zimmermann, Ambassador of Austria to the United Kingdom. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Good morning, everybody. Greetings from London. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here again. And I still remember very well last year's online meeting on June 23rd at a very gloomy time, actually, and we did not really know how the future would develop, but I think we can start today's meeting at a much more upbeat note. Economic collapse has been avoided. There are good signals for growth and rebound in the UK as well as in Austria, and I think we should go full steam ahead, and there are many possibilities. It will be, in practice, however, a bumpy road. There is two reasons why there are bumps on the road. One is still COVID, and the other one is Brexit. We are now entering Brexit reality, and it is not a very pleasant reality, because there are many small aspects of Brexit which only surface now, but which have to be solved to make our economic relations, to keep our economic relations as smooth as possible. We are working on that. I will have a meeting with my British counterparts here just after this meeting, and we will talk about the necessary little steps which have to be taken to make it as easy as possible for businesses to trade, to invest, to cooperate with their counterparts. And it goes down to very little things like the official certificate, like the certification of official documents, which was automatic as long as the UK was in the EU, but now there is no legal basis for that. We have to certify documents here at our embassy and the British Embassy in Vienna. And these things cause little frictions, but we hope that we will be able to solve these problems in the coming months. Our foreign minister was here in the UK last week just to talk about the best way to proceed. I think we will all try to help you. Our Austrian institutions, WKO, Christian Kiesbeck will talk to you right after me, but I also want to thank the Greater Manchester Chamber and DIT for their efforts, which have become as necessary as ever. Let me conclude with a few spotlights, with a little bit of trivia on the businesses going on in Austria and between Austria and the UK. You know the Pope Mobile, the vehicle that the popes are being driven around in when they salute the crowds when they're on visits. And the next Pope Mobile will actually come from Austria. It will be produced in Austria for a US company, Fisker. It will be an electric vehicle. We call it the Fisker Ocean. And Fisker asked an Austrian company, Magna, in Graz to produce that vehicle, and that will surely be known around the world in the near future. There will be not one, but two Formula won Grand Prix in Austria this summer. And it's not only the fact that there is a strong automotive cluster in Austria. There is a lot of high tech in Austria, but it is also the fact that Austria was able to organize the first GP during Corona last year that shows how resilient and how inventive Austrian business and Austrian organization can be. So watch out for these two Grand Prix races in Austria. And closer to Manchester, actually, we're now into the actual construction phase of HS2. And there is a large Austrian company, Strabag, which is involved. And they got that job against tough competition. But we are quite happy that there will be an Austrian contribution to HS2 and to the link between London and the English regions. So just a few spotlights, just a welcome from London and back to Manchester. And thank you very much for organizing this event. And thank you very much for participating.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now if we hand over to Christian from Advantage Austria.
Yes, Amy and everybody who's listening in, thank you also for having me on board and giving me this platform to tell my version of the Austrian story. I am the Austrian Trade Commissioner for the United Kingdom. I'm not going to talk about trade because Amy did a wonderful job already on doing that. Let me maybe say a few words. When people ask me, what is it? I say it's like an old, happy marriage. It's a mature and stable trade relationship. You know, we know each other. We have known each other for a long time. We take advantage of each other's strength, and we have done that for a long time. One thing that I would like to point out, Austria has a very densely populated landscape of subsidiaries. There's about 290 Austrian companies doing business here in the UK, many in the Northwest, employing 50,000 people and turning over 25 billion euro, which in comparison, which is about the sixfold the volume of trade that we are doing. And the ambassador has mentioned it, of course, you know, Brexit has kind of made it a little bit more difficult, you know, from an easy walk in the plains of the common market or the single market, dealing with a third country now became a little bit of a hurdle race. But as we have learned from the last couple of months, it's hurdles that can be overcome. It just needs a little bit of homework. It will, however, make it necessary or interesting for companies to set up shop in the other country more than it did before. We have a number of Austrian companies that are investing right now in the United Kingdom because it makes sense. You know, whenever unfortunately Brexit drove us apart a little bit, but the further apart two markets are, the more there is a need to have a presence there. You have your feet on the ground. But that said, I would like to kind of talk a little bit about Austria and the Austrian story, and about the fact that it's kind of a story of two chapters. So there's a well-known story, and the well-known story of Austria always starts with, you know, with Haydn, Schubert, Mozart, skiing, mountains, beautiful scenery, ski instructors, Trapp family, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's all there, and it's all good. It attracts 22 million tourists every year, 900,000 Brits. We are happy and proud of it. But there is another story. It's a more secret story, a less well-known story. That's the story about the turnaround, the very successful turnaround, the story of a country's transformation from an impoverished, landlocked, not believing in itself, leftover of two lost wars, into a player on, you know, on the stage of success. And so if we look at, you know, what happened since World War II, I'm not going to take you back to the part of time when Austria was an empire, the third most populous in the Western world. After World War II, we had to kind of reinvent ourselves. We had to resurrect our traditions in manufacturing, innovation, and engineering. And because we were so tired of so many years of so much conflict, we kind of engaged in economic and employment policies that relied very much on a central commitment on social market economy and social partnership between the players in an economy, labor and employers. And then actually we were finally favored by fortune when we ended up at the winning and the beneficiaries of two of the major developments of the 20th century, which is the fall of the Iron Curtain that propelled us from the fringes of the evil empire into the center of a growth area, Central Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, and it's still an economic area growing much faster than many other places in the continent. And the second was the dawn of the information age, digitalization, leveling the playing field for everything small, like small countries or small companies. Today, Austria, and that's widely understood, we are not, we are very proud of tourism, but we are not really a tourist country. We don't generate our wealth from tourism. We do, but not to the extent that the world believes. Austria is the 5th wealthiest country in the European Union. I think the 9th wealthiest in Europe, the 15th wealthiest in the world, and it has, if there is no pandemic, quite favorable and stable economic indicators. And even during the pandemic, we didn't kind of expand our budget deficit and our debt ratio as much as others did, and are maybe less vulnerable to negative shocks in the future. We have a strong and highly diversified external sector, 60% generated by exports, and exports are not only good for exporters. Exports are good for everyone because export means innovation and export means productivity because you have to compete with the world. We have an impressive degree of self-sufficiency in energy, and we have an educational system that probably Jan and Galinde will talk more about. It's not elite in the connotation of Imperial College or Oxford or Cambridge, but it's very well set up to produce highly qualified professionals and skilled workers for high value operations. We have a dual vocational system. You have heard, I guess, about it, apprenticeships in companies coupled with courses in schools and community colleges. And that's the most important part for me. We have a strong still a very strong industrial base. Austria is a manufacturer. We generate almost 20% of our GDP from making things. And there is the infrastructure there for that, the education, the association, the streets, the airports, the logistics centers, and all that kind. And this makes Austria kind of the home of a very strange, of a very rare breed of companies. They are called the hidden champions, the niche players. There are companies that, that are relatively unknown, but rule the world market in very small, rather very highly specialized segments. There are about 2,000 of these peculiar animals in the world, 50% in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, although only 1.5% of the world population are in those countries. And these companies are mostly exporting 80% of what they make. They have a world market share of 30, 40, sometimes 50%. They spend almost 10% in average on R&D. They are B2B, they are not known. They are like some fish that only live in very pure water. And I think that is the basic thought and the basic advice that I have for anybody who would like to do business in Austria. If the circumstances are right, if you one of these peculiar animals that need this environment that I have described and that Galinde and Jan will describe in much more detail, then looking into Austria as a place to do business is definitely looking into the right direction. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Amy. Again, thank you for your hospitality for this platform to talk.
Thank you very much, Christian. And now we're heading over to the Austrian Business Agency, and Galinde, the director, is going to talk to you first. Morning.
Good morning, everybody from Vienna. Thank you very much, Amy, for the introduction, and also many thanks to Amy and Harold for the organization of this event. I represent Austrian Business Agency, Invest in Austria, responsible for the UK, and I'm really happy to share today the advantages of Austria as a business location, and also the advantages for how to set up business. First of all, some few words about our agency. We are a governmental agency located in Vienna and offer consultancy services since 1982. We are divided in 3 departments. This is Invest in Austria, where I work for. We support foreign companies. Our focus is clearly to help foreign companies to come to Austria. In the last years, we also saw an increasing number from the UK. So also we helped a lot of UK companies to set up a subsidiary or company in Austria. Another pillar is Location Austria, and we also have a new department, Work in Austria, that also helps with work and residence permits. All our services are completely free of charge. It's a service offered. Can we go back, please, to the other slide? It's offered free of charge from our government. And we have a wide range of business support, from general information about Austria, from legal and tax questions. We help with permits, give information about financing and fundings, have a lot of useful contacts, give practical support and tailor-made services. So really what our clients need. And all this in a very unbureaucratical way, and for all types of companies, from the huge company to startup companies, and to also SMEs or smaller companies. Now we can move to the next slide. Christian already drew the perfect image of Austria and told you already everything about it. Just let me also give some words about it. Austria is very well known as a touristic location, and tourism is also important, but it contributes only with 15% to Austrian GDP. And more important, and also not so well known, is that Austria also is a very industrialized country and has an industry production that amounts to 29%, which we can see on the next slide. So we are also very close to high industrialized countries like Germany or Japan, or if you look on the EU average, we are really much above. The most important industry sectors are machinery, electronics, vehicles. Automotive is also very strong. The ambassador already mentioned Magna, but maybe also you should know that every second engine of BMW is made in Austria, is produced in Austria. Other sectors that are also strong are chemicals and the food sectors. These sectors have also in common that they are quite R&D intense to be successful, and Austria offers a very good ecosystem for R&D related companies. On the next slide, I would like to show also how important foreign companies are for Austria. 3.4% of all companies have an international background, but they employ over 42% of all R&D staff in Austria, and are responsible for over 53% of all R&D expenditures. As foreign companies are so important, that's why also Austrian government offers support through our agency. Next slide, please. Austria is quite a small country with 8.9 million inhabitants, divided into 9 provinces. Capital city is Vienna with 1.8 million inhabitants. It's a wealthy country, we heard it already, 5th highest ratio within the EU, and the GDP per capita of 39,000 euro. The company structure is mostly SME, it's mostly family owned. There are a lot of innovative and specialized companies, a lot of hidden champions. One example, for instance, you might know is Rosenbauer. It's the world leading manufacturer of systems for firefighting and disaster protection. That has a staff of over 3,500 people in over 100 countries and a sales of over 900 million euro. Austria is a small country, but it has a very well-connected community, so everybody knows everybody. It's very easy to meet the right expert, and this is also a very huge advantage for doing business. And also the offer of digital services and e-government is already quite good and is also increasing constantly. If we move on to the next slide. R&D is really strong in Austria. Austria ranks second in the European Union with a quota of 3.2% of Austrian GDP. Basically, we can see this also on the graph. Since the year 2000, Austria invested a lot in innovation, high technology and industrial research. And the expenditures increased within 66% in this time frame up to nearly 13 billion euro. Where at the same time, the expenditures of the EU increased only by 16%. And for the really strong R&D, also a lot of international companies are responsible for this. So now let's move on to the next slide to see the advantages of Austria for international companies or startups that would like to expand to Europe. I have highlighted here 5 advantages which we identified in our long experience working for ABA. The first one is for sure the market. The country is small but wealthy. Purchasing power is 28 points higher than the media in the EU. Usually companies, when they expand, they want to find new clients, new markets. And Austria has an extremely central location in the heart of Europe with ideal access to all important EU and worldwide market, and it's also an important hub to all surrounding markets. Jan will tell more about the connection to the CE and SCE countries in his presentation. What we also notice that Austria is often used as a test market, in particular in the DACH region, because it's a small country but has the same language as the DACH region countries. So it's extremely attractive for international companies to launch a product in Austria, to test it and prepare it for the rollout in Germany and Switzerland with over 100 million people for the whole DACH region. So Austria, and we also got a lot of requests recently, is also a good location when it comes to set up a warehouse in the middle of Europe, because you have access to all the important markets. Second is the country framework. This is even more important in unstable times. Austria is very well known and has a really high stability and security from all different angles, from the social aspect, the economic aspect, and the personal aspect. To underline this with maybe an example, there are nearly no strikes due to the good cooperation between the social partners. In Austria, we only lose 2 days per 1,000 employees, while the European average rate is 49 days. And this is really an advantage for the companies because they do not lose money and time. A third reason is the qualified and flexible talent base, and has the truly international talent hub with excellent universities and research institutes. The student mix is very international. 29% of all graduates are at the tertiary level finish in natural sciences, ICT, and engineering. The fourth point is funding. Austria offers a strong and unique funding system and is one of the strongest countries for public funding in Europe. And the fifth is the ecosystem and the support. Companies find a lot of innovative technologies, a lot of collaboration, a competitive business environment. There is a dense network of clusters all around Austria for nearly every sector. So I think this is also very important for foreign companies and investors, that they also get support through our agencies, through the Chamber of Commerce, through the Advantage Austria offices, the regional agencies. Those really get a lot of support completely free of charge through the whole ecosystem. Besides that, Austria also has a very high quality of life. we will, and moderate living costs. There are a lot of new office developments, including in science parks, available in Vienna and in all major Austrian cities. And also the average rents in Austria are significantly below these of other European cities. Also about this, Jan will talk about in his presentation afterwards. We can skip the next slide and move on to the talent base, please. Next one. The key success factor in a pretty unique system is in Austria, the dual apprenticeship. Christian mentioned it already before. Young pupils between 15 and 19 get a professional education in a lot of areas. And there are also a lot of new professions like coder, etc. They work in companies, but at the same time also go to school. So they really have, they are very experienced after they finish their apprenticeship. Besides that, there is also a very strong focus on vocational schools. Also here, students have the possibility to gain a lot of experience and practice whilst they are studying. On top of this, employees are highly productive, motivated, very dedicated to work, and very loyal. With 22 public universities, 21 universities of applied sciences, and 12 private universities, Austria has one of the highest percentages of tertiary graduates in the fields of engineering, manufacturing, and construction among OECD and partner countries, and over 18,000 STEM graduates per year. And the majority of Austrian graduates are from public universities. So, for instance, also in computer science, there is a high job out rate because the students do not graduate because they already find a job and start working during their studies. And besides that, Austria offers also a modern and flexible labor law. Next slide, please. The tax system is moderate. There is a corporate tax rate. It's a flat tax rate of 25%. We do not have trade or wealth taxes. For innovative companies, Austria offers the system of 14% tax credit for expenditures in R&D. Group taxation is available for companies that have subsidiaries in different countries. And of course, there are also a lot of double taxation treatments. And my last point is funding. Next slide, please. Funding system is quite comprehensive. Basically, there is funding for investments, for R&D, for environment, for growth, for internationalization, for export, for it. These programs are mostly for SMEs, for startups, for innovative companies, R&D companies, but also for larger corporations. Those fundings are available on a federal level. Additionally, also the 9 provinces have their own programs, which they offer on a regional level. On the next slides, we can see the most important funding institutions. There are a lot more. I only listed the 3 most important. This is AWS that promotes investments and has also a lot of startup funding. FFG is the Austrian Research Promotion Agency that promotes innovative projects, R&D projects. FWF is the Austrian Science Fund that promotes basic research. And then on the regional level, we have 9 agencies that also offer their own programs. For Vienna, Jan will mention the Vienna Business Agency funding programs. I particularly would like to point out the unique funding for R&D, which we will see on the next slide, because it's a very good system and a lot of companies are using this system. The FFG supports as a one-stop shop innovative companies with project financing up to 60% in a mix between non-repayable grants and low interest loans. In addition to this direct incentive, Companies can also claim a 14% tax credit. That means 14% of costs for staff and material for in-house research or outsourced to Austrian research institutes will be paid back by the Austrian state, and this also in case of losses. So if you invest 100, you get back 14 in cash. This is very convenient for innovative companies, and this is really, it helps a lot for innovative companies. Well, from my point, I hope I could give you a small overview about the Austrian advantages, especially the location and a talent, which is very important. And I would like to hand over to Jan now from Vienna Business Agencies to hear the advantages of Vienna.
Great. Thank you very much, Gerlinde. Hello and good morning from Vienna from my side. Thank you much, Amy, and everybody who made this possible for presenting Vienna here, which is a real pleasure. I will present to you a lot of facts and figures about Vienna in the upcoming presentation. But I want you to take away two messages from my presentation here. The first one is that whenever you think about doing business on the continent in Europe, or if you think about setting a business entity up somewhere on the continent, always think about Vienna or Austria as well. You know, you have easy targets like Germany, Netherlands, Ireland, but have a look at Austria as well and see what benefits there might be. The second message I want you to take away from my presentation is that Vienna, Austria, is not just the city of Vienna or the country of Austria with its rather small population, but you have to think bigger. So when you set something up in Austria, you have easy access to the whole DACH region, like Germany, Switzerland, and of course to all those upcoming markets in Central Eastern Europe or Southeastern Europe. This is why I have slightly changed the title of my presentation, Straight from the Heart of Europe. Now I will go on with my presentation. But just keep in mind those two messages. So when you think about doing business on the continent, think Vienna, Austria, and think it is a much bigger market than it is actually. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So I want to emphasize in my presentation that Vienna is a great place to live and a great place to make money as well, to do business. Just a few information about how others see Vienna or how we do rank internationally. And of course, we have topped the Mercer study for quality of living, I think for the last 10 years, I think it's now 11 years. We're a great place for startups, we're a smart city, and we are a very family-friendly city as well. Next slide, please. And just to give you a bit more detail about what I mean with affordable living or family-friendly living. Affordable living means that, let's say, for example, compared to other European cities where New York with 100 points is the kind of benchmark when it comes to cost of living, including housing, Vienna is quite well established when compared to Amsterdam or to London. The next point is housing costs. Housing costs in Vienna are extremely low compared to other European cities. This is due to the city of Vienna being one of the biggest landlords in Europe. I think 500,000 inhabitants in Vienna are living in accommodation provided by the city. And of course, what I have to stress out here is public transport. So there are roughly 2.5 million rides a day in Vienna. And we have the annual ticket capped at the price of 365 euros a year. Compared to other cities, this is extremely cheap, and it stresses that Vienna thinks itself as a very green city. A green city it is, with roughly 50% of the city area covered with gardens and parks. Next slide, please. So, and of course, there are more facts and figures about Vienna. Of course, point number one is we are extremely well organized city. It's a very politically stable city as well for the last decades. Vienna is an extremely cosmopolitan city, which is shown by the fact that a third of all inhabitants were born out of Austria. So when you walk the streets in Vienna, you hear many, many different languages. And Vienna is one of the fastest growing cities in Europe. Currently, I think we are at 1.9 million, but I think by 2027, we will hit the 2 million mark. The population is growing organically, which means that there is hardly any shortage of living space as well. So there are new city developments going on all the time. There are new cities districts being erected all the time. And of course, you have to see the bigger metropolitan area of Vienna, as you have to do with Manchester and Manchester metropolitan area. So Vienna is 1.9, but the whole metropolitan area of Vienna and the surrounding districts is 2.6 million. So roughly more than a quarter of the Austrian population is living in Vienna or around Vienna. And as we have mentioned a couple of times before, Austria is a rich country, and so is Vienna. As you can see, the GDP per capita is way above the average of the EU. And as I said before, it's a business-driven city. Behind all this, this nice imperial facades, you see a lot of companies operating with 140,000 companies operating in the city. Next slide, please. So what is the big advantage of Vienna? It's not just the heritage, the nice buildings, the good food, but Vienna is positioning itself as a strategic hub in the center of Europe, which means that when you hop on a plane in Vienna, you can reach all the capitals within 3 hours flights. So to London, I think it's not even 2 hours. You can fly to Moscow, you can fly to all the capitals within Europe. The good thing about the Viennese airport is that there is a city airport train that brings you there within 16 minutes. So when you have a meeting here or doing business here, getting from the airport to the center of Vienna is fairly easy. There's a new train station now in operation for the last, I think, 3-4 years with roughly 1,000 trains connecting all the dots in Europe as well. So what makes it a great place for doing business here is, as I said before, you can easily access the German market, Swiss market, sharing the same language, and you can easily go into the Central Eastern European markets and Southeastern European markets as well. And you have a lot of partners based here in Vienna who can help you doing business there. So after the fall of the Iron Curtain, Austria was one of the biggest and still is investors in those markets, where you can see Austrian banks, financial institutions like insurance companies. They have a huge exposure business-wise in those surrounding countries. So if you want to do business there and you have an Austrian bank already, they will be there as well. And of course, it's a trusted partner in all those countries. What else helps? There's an exceptional road and rail network linking the Eastern European markets with the Western European markets. As I said before, train and roads, it's a gateway between East, West, and North and South. And of course, as we are a landlocked country, we still have a harbor in Vienna, which is quite busy, being on the Danube. And the trade going on the Danube River is increasing year by year. It's not just the Danube cruise rides to the Black Sea. And of course, what is most important for doing business in Vienna as well, coming from the UK, is that English is spoken quite well in Austria. So the English language proficiency skills are quite high. And you have the big advantage. So if you start here from Austria and you want to do business with CEE countries, all those major languages being spoken here in Vienna as well. So if you're looking for talent that can operate in the German-speaking market, and let's say in the Hungarian, Czech or Romanian market, Russian market, you will find the right experts with all the language skills here as well. Next slide, please. And when it comes to an international hub, it's not just the population being so diverse, coming from so many countries, but it's also a diplomatic hub. Vienna hosts the only UN headquarter within the EU. There are a lot of international organizations being based here, like OPEC, OFID, International Atomic Energy Agency, and of course, they all bring their staff and diplomats to Vienna as well. And you can feel that in the vibe of the city. So it became a truly international city. And since the fall of the Iron Curtain, Vienna underwent a really huge transition into a vibrant international community here. As you can see, a lot of expats living here, and we host a lot of international schools to facilitate the life of expatriates and their families here. Next slide, please. And what has been written on the previous slide is that Vienna is hosting roughly 220 international headquarters in Vienna. So a lot of huge international corporates are using Vienna as the regional headquarter operating in surrounding countries. And you can see quite well-known names there, Nikon, Luke Oil, Henkel, Boehringer Ingelheim. So it goes from pharmaceutical to oil, gas, food, chemicals, technology. So whatever you name, a lot of international headquarters for the region CE and Southeastern Europe are based here in Vienna. Next slide, please. We have heard it today already from Christian and from Gelinde, that everybody thinks about Austria being a touristic country, which is true, sound of music, skiing, and so on. And tourism is very important for Vienna as well, but the contribution to the GDP is 4 times higher in digital technologies and in life sciences than it is coming from tourism. But of course, our business is also benefiting from tourism as well. So you get a nice impression from Vienna, but you have to think about it as a very, very business-driven city. So what are the key strengths is, of course, life sciences, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, digital technologies, smart and urban technologies, smart production, and creative industries. 85% of GDP in Austria is generated by service industry, and roughly 13% production. And this is very stable, and it became a very important fact for Vienna to keep production within city boundaries. Next slide, please. Now I come back to the Talent Hub. Of course, you have a nice surrounding where you can live, where you can make business, but where to find the right people to operate your business here. And we have heard it before from Gelinde. Austria is a huge university location, and so is Vienna. It's the oldest university location in the DACH region, and it's definitely one of the biggest. So we go head on head with Berlin, with roughly 200,000 students in Vienna. So you can see 10% of the whole population are students. And of course, again, a huge percentage of international students, a third. And this is, again, important for you. So you have talent here, and you have talent here speaking different languages, having a cultural background that can help you doing business in the surrounding area as well. Based here in Vienna are 10 public universities and 6 private universities, and there might be a 7th coming along next year. So again, if you're looking for setting something up here, if you're looking for the right talents, right people, I'm pretty sure you will find them here. Next slide, please. So, and then of course, I have to give you a bit of information about who I am and what organization I'm working for. I'm working for the Vienna Business Agency. We are the local investment promotion agency. So Gelinde was working for the Austrian one. And then of course, on the local level, it is the Vienna Business Agency. We're working on 3 pillars. The one is funding. So we are giving out fundings to companies based here in Vienna, roughly 35 million a year. You can also apply for those funding programs, although you're not yet based here. But if you think about, okay, well, this funding program might help me, or that suits me, I can apply for that. it's fine. Please do so. Have a look at our website, what fundings are available, and hand in your application. And then the second pillar is real estate. Land owned by the city of Vienna is being developed by the Vienna Business Agency, but for commercial purposes only. So we are making sure that there's land available for commercial purposes. We are developing the locations, renting them out or selling them off. And of course, we are doing consulting. So we are roughly 160 people within this organization, and we're consulting local companies, international companies, big, small SMEs, startups, everybody who thinks about setting up a business here, or who just thinks about doing something business-like in Vienna. Please contact us. All our services, of course, free of charge. Next slide, please. So what are our services for international companies and organizations? If you from Greater Manchester think about setting something up here, it's kind of the same Gerlinde's offering, but here on a more local level. So information about the business location, Vienna, commercial tax, labor law, work permits, information about financial grants, as mentioned before. We can establish contacts with authorities here, as we are owned by the city of Vienna. And of course, if you will get in touch with Viennese bureaucracy, we can give you a hand there. And of course, as we have our own real estate department, we can help you with looking for the right location of your business endeavor. Next slide, please. So, and just to show you, are there actually companies coming to Vienna? And yes, they are. As you can see, we had in 2019, we had 266 companies, international companies, setting up their businesses here in Vienna. And even last year, hit by the pandemic, there were still 218 companies setting up shop in Vienna. And so far, I think it looks quite good for this year as well. Maybe the next slide, please. So where are those international companies coming from? Of course, there's no surprise. Most of them are coming from Germany as being our biggest trade partner. And then on second place, it's Great Britain. I don't know if it is owned by the fact of Brexit, but the more the merrier. So the more British companies think about setting up their business here in Vienna, the better it is. And as you can see, the neighboring countries are the most important as well. So Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary. The next slide, please. Yeah, then again, I can just summarize why Vienna. Good quality of life, transportation, networks. It's a great place to do business here. It's a very business-driven environment. We're speaking German, which is important for the DACH region, and a lot of other languages are being spoken here as well. We're a huge talent hub, and we have experienced expert support team here as well. So when you think about setting something up on the continent, think about Vienna and Austria as well. And I think the last slide is just my contact details. Thank you very much for listening. And I hand over to Amy. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jan and Gerlinde. I am just going to try and reshare the slides because there is a subtitle message on the bottom. So I'll just reshare the slides before we hand over to Margaret at Department for International Trade. Margaret, over to you.
Thank you, Pauline. Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren, und ich freue mich sehr, heute hier zu sein und bedanke mich für die Gelegenheit, mit Ihnen zu sprechen. So thanks very much to Pauline and to everybody at the Chamber and Harold for the opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is Margaret Burke. I'm an international trade advisor with the Department for International Trade based in the Northwest. And together with my colleague Miles Fisher in Austria, we're going to talk about how DIT can help you export to Austria. So I'm going to cover the support available in the Northwest, and Miles will talk about DIT in Austria. I'm going to make it short and sweet because I'm sure that people have questions that they would like to ask when we're finished. So in terms of DIT, the Department for International Trade, we have a global network. We have 2,400 staff worldwide, And of those, there's 1,400 based in embassies and consulates in over 114 different countries around the globe. We've got 300 UK advisors and 30 people like myself based in the Northwest. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm just going to reshare, Margaret. We seem to be having some technical issues.
No problem. There we go. So in terms of what we do, I'll leave you read this yourself, but basically what we do is we help companies to export, to either start exporting or to export to new or more difficult markets. All our advice is fully funded, impartial and confidential. Next slide, please. So the support available to UK businesses, there's a national universal offer, and that's at great.gov.uk. And I suggest if you haven't had a look at the great.gov.uk that you should. If you look at it, the menu is divided into 3 segments. There's advice, markets and services. And on the services section, you can create a business profile outlining your company's products or services. And that's available to overseas buyers who are looking to source UK products. You can also find export opportunities, which are developed by the embassies and consulates around the world. And they're essentially free business leads, sales leads. So if you haven't had a look at great.gov.uk, please do so and do make sure to set up a business profile. There's also market and industry information, guidance and advice, and there we go. Digital services like the latest export opportunities. In England only, there is access to international trade advisors like myself. There is an Internationalisation Fund for any of you who haven't heard of it, and that's for companies turning over £500,000 or more who are looking to expand their exports. The fund will cover up to £9,000 on a spend of up to £18,000. So if you haven't heard about that and it's of interest, please get in touch with your international trade advisor. If you don't have one, there's a contact detail at the end of this presentation, and get in touch, let them know you're interested in Internationalisation Fund. There's also, for companies turning over less than £500,000, the Export Academy. For events, and we're all looking forward to them happening in real life, we hope soon enough, we have the Trade Show Access Programme, which gives funding towards the cost of a portion of a stand on the UK Pavilion. These take places at trade fairs and exhibitions worldwide. Currently, we're running webinars, masterclasses, and virtual missions. So I'm currently involved with a virtual mission to Japan, which involves setting up meeting arrangements and for companies to get information about a market that's very important to them. I think for Austria as well, if it's of interest to you, please let us know and let's see what we can do to further develop links between the Northwest and Austria. In terms of e-commerce, there's also information available on great.gov.uk, which gives you online marketplaces from around the globe with information and selling online overseas service. Next slide, please. The Export Academy I've already mentioned. So for companies turning over less than £500,000 a year, there is a free course to help companies grow their international sales. If that's of interest to you, please have a look at www.events.great.gov.uk/Export Academy. Next, please. Export Champions were started in the Northwest, and they're basically companies who are willing to give their time to other companies interested in exporting because they've been there, they've done it, they've got the t-shirt, and they often talk at our events and are happy to encourage and assist businesses to export. So we're really delighted and grateful to our export champions for the time that they give to other companies. Next slide, please. For bigger contracts, it's definitely worth getting in touch with UK Export Finance, and you can do that through your international trade advisor. Of particular interest is the buyer credit facility, where you can help buyer to access credit so that they can buy your products. There's also guarantee support, and there is insurance, particularly for markets where it's difficult to get insurance on the private sector market. Next slide, please. Questions will come to at the end. Next slide, please. And if any of you do not have an international trade advisor, please contact us on 0333 320 0392, and we can talk to you about the Internationalisation Fund. I'll put you through now to my colleague Miles Fisher, who's based at the British Embassy in Vienna.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you for everybody who's organised this. Could I move to the next slide, please? So DIT Austria, we are one of the 114 offices spread around the world, and we're co-located at the British Embassy in Vienna. We have 3 staff dealing with trade issues, trade promotion, so getting UK companies into the Austrian market. 3 dealing with inward investment, so encouraging Austrian firms to set up an operation in the UK. And as a result of Brexit, we have 1 person who is dealing with issues that arise from Brexit. Can I have the next slide, please? So our primary aim is to increase UK exports to Austria and investment by UK companies into Austria. That is, helping UK firms, as the VBA and the ABA does, to locate into Austria. But also we have FDI of Austrian firms into the UK. And to hark back to the ambassador's comments about our long-standing relationship with Austria, it was Stephenson's rocket number 2, the second steam engine ever developed. Its first export market was to Austria. And nowadays we have Siemens Mobility, a train manufacturer in Austria, producing trains for the Piccadilly line, and shortly to establish a factory in Goole to produce those trains further in the UK. So, but one of our core purposes in the team is actually to identify sectors in Austria where UK firms may have an advantage in the Austrian market. Can I have the next slide, please? And we identify, or have identified, these as being the core areas of activity: healthcare, life sciences, financial professional services, education, and clean growth. Clean growth being, the most popular at the moment amongst UK companies. We don't, of course, ignore other sectors. So we deal with inquiries from approximately 200 companies a year. Typically, companies are looking for customers, distributors, or they're wanting us to organize product launches. All sorts of items are requested by companies. Some we can answer, some we can't, but we tend to know the people that they should be referred to. Important in Austria that innovation and high quality products are what sells. This is, as already explained, a high GDP market, and quality is very important. Next slide, please. So what are our core activities? Well, researching up and coming sectors, benchmarking them, comparing UK to Austria to try and identify where the UK really has an advantage and a potential in the market. Promoting those sectors to the UK market to try and get people in the UK interested. Organising awareness raising seminars either on a B2B or a B2C or a B2G basis, depending on the sector, and carrying out specific research on behalf of companies. So I currently have 16 companies that I'm doing research on into who their competitors might be, finding them a distributor, organising events for them, although at the moment the organising events is a bit on hold. Can I move on to the next slide, please? And finally, a key to doing business in Austria, obviously important to know your market. And that's where DIT, both in the UK and abroad, can help. DIT in the UK can suggest markets, and the markets can then come back and carry out the work for you. Be aware, of course, that exporting is an expensive operation. Don't overreach yourself. I've had, over the 22 years I've been doing this job, several instances of a smallish company reaching out to 15 markets all at the same time and basically not being able to respond. Bad news can be good news. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you will get a frank and honest answer to your request for an overview of the market of a particular country, and it may be that left-handed screwdrivers just don't sell in a particular country. Bear in mind, Austria is a conservative country. People tend to be very formal. I've seen deals go flat because people have used the first name of somebody that they didn't know particularly well in addressing them. Do what you say, that's very important. And keep in contact with your customer stroke distributor. This is a country where personal contact is very important. So when you get an opportunity to meet a client or a distributor, please do use it. And the next slide, please. And the next one, please. Okay, if you have any questions, there are my coordinates. I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miles and Margaret. If you do have any questions for any of the speakers, or you want to get in touch on a one-to-one basis afterwards, then we will happily make those introductions. So we will send you a follow-up email. Please just reply to that if you want introducing to any of today's speakers. I just want to open up now. I know we're running a little bit behind time, but if anybody's got any questions, if you would like to post those in the chat, and we can put them to the speakers now. We will also share the slides. I know there was some problems with the subtitles appearing, so we will share the slides so you can see anything that you may have missed. I just have a question then for Gerlinde and Jan. You mentioned some of the larger businesses that have relocated to Austria. I know we've got quite a few SMEs on the call today. So do you work with smaller businesses, and also how can they get in touch, and what would the process be for them?
Of course, well, the size doesn't matter in this regards when setting something up here. So the process is quite the same for a big or for a small business entity. It is first of all, of course, to reach out to us and to learn what general information is there of setting up businesses. So, you know, what is the comparison to a limited here? How does it work to set it up? What are the costs? What are the costs involved? We might get the expert opinion in from a tax advisor, from a lawyer, or from a notary. We can arrange those kind of meetings free of charge for the first session together with the Austrian Business Agency. So we work hand in hand here to get the best service over to the customer. And it normally works like this. You know, it is you send us an email, you give us a call, and we will guide you through the whole process. We can accompany you to those meetings. We can set them up for you. If you have questions in regards to awkward sounding taxes or regulations you might have never heard of before, you know, we will give you the answer. And that's it. So it's fairly easy to get in touch with us. And as Gerlinde and myself, we're working for public organizations. All our services are free of charge, regardless of how many questions you have. Gerlinde.
I agree with Jan. It's very easy to get in touch with us directly through our emails. They're all on our homepage, by phone or via LinkedIn. So it's a very informal approach, and we always try to offer tailor-made services. So really, what our clients would like to know, which information they need, and also if they need some contact. So we work really very tailor-made, and we from ABA Austrian Business Agency, we work all over Austria. So we can give consultancy services and advice for all of Austria.
Perfect, thank you. I don't know if we've got any questions on the chat. I can't see any. Maybe just one for you. I think it'll be you, Christian. We have a couple of people that had messaged us in advance of this call that were looking to import and for some suppliers in Austria. Is that something you can help with? Not sure if Christian's still here. I think Christian may have...
If not, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if you're looking to import from, sorry, I'm trying to switch. If you are looking to import products that are produced in Austria, then that is where Christian and his team can help. If you're trying to export products to Austria, that's where we are involved.
Perfect, thank you, Miles. And I think if we've got no further questions, then we will probably try and wrap up today's session. Thank you very much to all of our speakers and to our partner for the event, the Austrian Business Agency. We will be in touch with the slides, and then if you've got any questions or you want any introductions from there, please do get in touch with Francesco and the team at the Chamber here, and we'll do our best to help you out. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please contact us directly.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.